Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. Hi, Nicolas and Mike. Hope you're both well. I thought we'd kick off by talking about this idea of search and obviously how it's been dramatically changed and impacted by mobile and other technologies and how it's not just Google equated with search anymore. So, Nicolas, do you want to talk a bit about how you're approaching search differently and how you're putting the customer at the center of this?
Yeah, so Algolia, we are a search API, so basically we help developers to deliver great user experience, search experience inside their apps or their websites. And for us, we don't want the end users actually to search. We want them to access data. We want to guide them interactively to their data without them to have to rely again on Google, leaving the website, leaving the app, back to Google and back to the app. So user experience is the key that we are trying to solve here, with both something extremely fast so that we can update the result at each keystroke and relevant. So we can use the business data like the number of likes, number of sales, whatever makes sense in the app or the website to get the most relevant result at the first keystroke.
Okay, Mike?
Search on mobile is going to be a lot different over the next couple years, and Nicolas and Algolia are doing some really interesting things. I think it's going to be more of a push type thing rather than a pull. Google search on the web is going to be maybe less applicable than what it is inside mobile apps. So it's going to be really interesting to see how content inside of apps really shapes search over the next couple of years.
And is it something where where is the user in your plan and your strategy for Algolia? At Branch, sorry.
At Branch. So the user is interacting with Branch. So those that don't know what Branch does, it's a mobile deep linking and tracking technology. We help you deep link users directly to content through the app install process. And for us, what's really important is making sure that we can expose content to end users, maybe for apps even that they don't have, and take them directly to that content so they can interact with apps very similar to how they interact with websites and directly going to content on the websites through Google search.
Okay, so when you're with your growth plans, where does that fit against? Are you going for profitability? Is it against more customers? How are you planning to grow?
So Branch is a free open source SDK, and we don't charge right now. So we're well funded at this point. We're focusing on growth right now. For profitability, that's not really something that we're concerned about. Really, I think a lot of companies, they need to make that decision early on. Is this something that we're going to try to go after a much longer term, bigger mission that we can focus on growth early on and then worry about monetization and profitability later on, or do you want to start generating revenue in the early days? For us, we don't want to get distracted with revenue and didn't want to start monetizing on things that maybe are less impactful and not really big businesses. So we're going after a much longer term mission, which is going to mean profitability later on, hopefully.
So you've obviously got some confident investors. What is it about your technology that is showing that you're doing something different, that you can focus on the growth rather than the revenue?
So for us, I think it's a combination of two things: really great technology and then a longer term mission. So the great technology is something that hasn't existed before, deep linking through install. But really what we're able to do through that is help figure out what content is trapped away inside of apps, which is not something that Google can go index, or all these other companies can't really index, especially as content gets created and is trapped inside of apps. And our longer term mission, kind of, working with companies like Algolia, is helping expose that content into the real world so that people can discover apps based on the content that's within them rather than just searching inside the App Store by the app name.
And Nicolas, how about over at Algolia? Is that a similar model that you have, or are you needing to bring in the money and show that the revenue?
It's slightly different in the sense that we already charge people, so we do care about revenue. That said, it's a SaaS business, so growth, especially in the early days, is always more important than directly profitability. So yeah, we are well funded too, and so we are trying to accelerate as much as possible right today without waiting for profitability to get a bigger chance of really changing the way people are interacting with data, we are searching everywhere. And so growth definitely is the more important thing for us.
Okay. And Mike, you mentioned earlier about the app economy and how that's coming on. So we've shifted from search being on the web to mobile search and now for app. Can you say a bit about where do you see this going? Because obviously it's quite a big change from having people just finding you when they're browsing the web to suddenly already having an app. How will you benefit from that, and how are you targeting that?
Yeah, I think there's a massive problem inside the mobile ecosystem that everyone is facing and starting to realize is a massive problem, which is app discovery. So every week right now, 10,000 new apps hit the App Store on iOS alone, and it's comparable inside Google Play. If you look inside the App Store, there's only 10 apps that get featured every week. How do those apps actually get exposed? And if you think about it back to the way the web was back in the 90s, Yahoo had this directory, and you could go in and look in certain categories, but couldn't really find what you were looking for, and enter Google, and they helped index websites and helped you find websites that had the content that you cared about. And I think the big problem inside the app ecosystem right now is app discovery. And that's really where you're going to start to see some disruption over the next couple of years with respect to how can apps, especially smaller and newer apps, get exposed into the ecosystem and then get discovered. Because right now it's just the Goliaths. It's the top 100 apps or top 1,000 apps that are getting used in the App Store. And if you're not one of those, if you launch an app, you're probably dead already.
Okay. Nicolas?
Yeah, I think I completely agree on that. And I would add that once you get inside an app or inside a website or anywhere, actually people today don't want to get out of the app again. And so you want inside the app to be able to browse, to access, to search for content, possibly to search for external apps content. So that's where you enter in. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, we're seeing people leaving, like, let's say, the meta search approach, like the Google approach, to go more deeply into staying in their own ecosystem, be it an app, Facebook, or whatever website, or even Amazon. Today, if I want to buy something, I directly go to Amazon. I don't go to Google anymore. So we see that shifting. And we see also these app editors, they don't want people to leave again because they may find another app, another website, and they want to keep people engaged. And so this engagement is so important, and that's where search, for example, is definitely a technology that can help retain more, engage more the people inside the app experience.
And can either of you see a time when apps are typically associated now with mobile, but can you see a time when they become bigger on the desktop and on normal laptops and PCs rather than just being on mobile? So people, rather than using a browser, would actually have different apps downloaded on their machine at work?
To be honest, no. I think instead we're going to see the opposite shift. If you think about computer programs back in the day, you would have to go to the CompUSA or whatever the appropriate store was, buy that, download it onto your computer, and then it shifted to everything being inside the browser for the most part, except for things like Photoshop or things that were too intense to operate inside the browser. And I think instead of longer term, the app stores are likely to go away. I don't know when that's going to be, but if I was Google, I'd be thinking about, instead of trying to keep all these siloed apps, how do I do to mobile similar to what browsers, including Chrome, did to the web, right? Keeping people inside of Chrome. So if you can imagine on an Android device, if people are doing everything inside their Chrome browser, Google has a lot more access to those users, and they're not worried about people going into separate apps and getting distracted. If they can basically put those apps inside the browser, similar to the way websites work and everything's web hosted nowadays, I think that's what you're going to see, rather than the platform shifting on desktop to be more like App Store focused. I think it's going to go the other way, where app stores eventually might go away.
Yeah, not much to add on this one. I mean, I kind of agree. I would say it's difficult to have people go back to even browser on a phone. I mean, I don't so often use my browser. I would use directly the apps, and I don't see that changing tomorrow. And on desktop, people are so used to the web that they don't want to move out of the browser. So it's probably different approach depending on the device. On mobile, apps are there to stay. On desktop, I don't see apps replacing the browser.
Obviously, the end goal here is to make search more intelligent and more useful for the user, but an element of that has to be around data collection. And there's, obviously, every day, big issues around the user privacy. So we've had the TalkTalk breach recently. We've had the safe harbor rules. So how do you manage the sort of like intelligent search and improving search versus collecting data? Nicholas?
On that side, so we do collect a lot of data about the users' behavior. Today, because we are like really B2B, that data is the ownership of our customers. So we don't monetize it or anything. We would provide, of course, access to the data, some analytics to our customers so that they can see the trending topics, trending searches, and so on. But so as of today, at least, we don't try to monetize any of that. We may, in the future, try to, let's say, leverage the knowledge to improve at yet another level the search results that we could produce. But out of that, we don't monetize it by itself.
Same. You have to be really careful when it comes to data collection, make sure that it's very clear. We, especially being a free and open source SDK, we get that question a lot. If you guys aren't charging, what are you going to do with my data? Are you going to sell it? And we're very explicit about saying it's your data, we're not going to sell it, and we're not using it in any other way beyond just giving analytics. Now, of course, beyond user data, and that's really the most important thing, we also have link data. So with Branch being a linking solution, we get links that point to all the content inside of apps. And that link data is really interesting because you could start imagining ways in which you could take that link data, expose it through a platform like Algolia, and enable people to discover content inside of apps that maybe they otherwise never would have been exposed to. But when it comes to user privacy, it's a really sensitive subject. For those that are not aware, the EU and US has this agreement, but it got struck down recently, so there's a bunch of different issues, especially if you're a US-based company operating with any sort of operations or services inside the EU. It's especially challenging to take that data, transfer it to US servers. You have to put all sorts of contracts in place. It's a mess, but we're very sensitive to that. And,
I think for any organisation, managing and collecting and having to protect user data, it's sort of top of mind at the moment. But okay, so if you're not able to make money from selling or selling on the user data or you're crunching that, obviously online ads, that's a big business. Search definitely plays a part in that. But ad blocking is having a big impact on the revenues that firms are able to gain. I work for a publishing company, obviously, it's a big issue for us. So how does that impact on your business? How are you supporting advertisers? Do you allow ad blocking? How does that work?
So it doesn't really have any impact on our business directly because we don't do ads. So our customers' business is maybe affected, but not us directly. So I would say that for our customers, the importance is to get other sources of revenue, engage more the user, so we can help a bit with that. But that would be it. I mean, we are not directly impacted with this trend.
Yeah, so same. We're not directly impacted, but it can affect some of our partners or our customers. So we actually did a study on this, and we looked at all the different links that were getting clicked on and where they're getting clicked on, because this is mainly an issue with iOS 9 and Safari, right, where now you can do some ad blocking inside Safari if people are clicking on links. And what we found was only about 50% of links that were getting clicked on were inside Safari. 34% alone were just in Facebook. And then the rest were like in WebKits, other different types of web views, that sort of stuff. And like the Facebook and the WebKits and the web views are less exposed to that. It's more Safari. And if you're thinking about 50% of your traffic not being exposed to this ad blocking, it becomes less of an issue. And you start to see some more of this, Facebook launching instant articles, and there's a few other tools that are coming out where now people are building more to do web views rather than taking people to Safari because it's such a jarring user experience. So with the ad blocking being specific mostly to Safari, but being an issue maybe even on Google, but a lot of people viewing inside Facebook and other types of web views, we don't think it's too big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Algolia, obviously, you're going up against the behemoth of Google, who certainly makes a lot of money from online advertising. So what is it that you're doing differently, and how will you succeed?
So we've been compared once to Google, but the truth is that we don't really compete with Google. In a sense, the way we would compete with them is that we would help websites to retain their users on the website so they wouldn't go back to Google, which is what they want, because once a user goes back to Google, they may actually find some different content on different websites. So I would say that's the way we are compared, in the sense that by helping getting a better experience inside websites or inside apps, people wouldn't need as much to rely on Google to find relevant content. But out of that, I mean, our business model is so different. Google is just an ad business. We are B2B in the sense we just monetize just the service, the technology, whereas Google monetized the attention of their users. So I wouldn't say we compete. We may disturb slightly the business of Google, but not much more than that today.
Google's doing so much that everyone's competing with Google in some way, no matter what your business is.
Definitely. And you're obviously coming at it from a different angle from the deep linking, and you've got some pretty interesting investors. And so what is it that's attracting them, and what's making you different from your rivals?
Yeah, so deep linking's been around. For those that don't know, deep linking is basically being able to take somebody directly to a resource or a higher level spot within an app or inside a website. Legacy deep linking's been around for a number of years. That basically only works for engagement, re-engagement type things if the app is installed. Branch is a universal linking platform, so we deep link through the install process, which no one else does. We also have built a bunch of different features on top of it, so you can add content sharing, you can add personalized welcomes, you can add referrals, do all sorts of stuff. So if you have a mobile app, make sure to check it out. And then we've also integrated into all the different standards, like Google's app indexing, Safari universal links, and Safari's Spotlight search. Facebook's app links, basically every different standard and platform you can imagine. If you put in Branch, you're automatically implemented with all those. So it's a kind of a one-stop shop for all your linking needs on mobile.
Brilliant. Oh, well, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but Nicolas and Mike, that's been really interesting. Thanks very much for listening, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.